Hey, are you feeling like your business is stuck no matter how hard you work? It is a frustration that many business owners face, hitting that growth ceiling that seems impossible to break through. But what if the real problem isn't about you working harder, but about identifying the hidden barriers that are holding you back? In this episode, I sit down with Brandon Gano of What If. He's a visionary entrepreneur who's been in your shoes. And we're going to dive into where businesses commonly get stuck, how to pinpoint the true issues, and most importantly, how to scale beyond your current limits without adding more hours to your work week. Yes. Don't miss this conversation if you'd really like to take your business to the next level without sacrificing your sanity on today's Profit with a Plan podcast. Hey entrepreneurs, are you trying to make bigger profits in your small business? If you're like most of us business owners, increasing your profitability is always on your mind, and you're probably looking for ways to grow your revenue while growing your company. Well, you found a podcast that shares ideas to do just that. I'm Marcia Riner, known as the Profit Booster. I am also a business growth strategist, and I've helped tons of small business owners to establish and implement a tangible plan that guarantees increased profitability, guides your growth, and plans for your future exit. Because building a highly profitable and sale-ready business creates a win-win scenario. That's more money now and a windfall when it's time to let go. And I want to share strategies that I've learned with you on today's Profit with a Plan podcast. But before we get started, I have something great to share with you. If you ever thought of supercharging your business and really wanted to avoid those profit plateaus, those operational headaches, those growth roadblocks, well, I've created a brand new Profit Booster playbook just for you. You'll uncover 3 essential strategies and the quick way to take action on them. Now, this isn't just a single-page report. It's filled with impactful strategies, actionable steps, and expert guidance to elevate your profits. Go download this free playbook at boostingprofit.com. All right, I have my guest on today, Brandon Gano. Brandon is a visionary entrepreneur of What If, who has turned frustrations into a successful business, which he built, franchised, and later sold for a significant profit. Now, with his business partner and friend, Sean Delaney, he is pioneering an unprecedented approach to educate and empower small business owners to achieve business growth like never before. Brandon, I'm so excited to have you on Profit with a Plan today.
Marcia, I am so excited to be here. And can I just say the Profit Booster playbook sounds phenomenal. So I'm gonna, as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna go check that out immediately.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I have fun creating collateral and things like that, and I'm such a giver that I want to give ideas and tricks and tools and things that people can get going. And plus, it gives them a little bit of a taste of how I work. And if they like it, there's always more behind that. But thank you. I appreciate the kudos on it. So, okay, Brandon, how in the world did you get into helping businesses grow? Because, we know it didn't start with the lemonade stand when you were 7. And, you do look a little young to be able to say that you created, franchised, and sold a company. So how did you get here?
I made up the whole bio and now we're here. It was a lemonade stand. We leave now? It's over. No, I did. Yeah, I started my first company. I was in my early mid 20s. I don't even remember at this point, but it came out of frustration. Like I said, I was actually part of another business and we used to subcontract out work to this type of company and I could never find a reliable source. So I was like, okay, it can't be that hard to run a business. Am I right? I'm sure we've all had that thought at some point in our lives.
Until we
Wrongo.
get in there.
Yeah, exactly. But really, what it came down to was I grew that business based on customer service. That was my whole focus because that's what was lacking. That's why I went into business in the first place. So it actually was relatively simple. I mean, that was the biggest pain point in that industry, and there's something to be said for solving other people's pain and charging money for it. So I was able to grow that business relatively quickly. Not too many bumps along the way. Like, yes, I overworked myself. I did all of those classic entrepreneurial things, but my mission was then to give that gift of business ownership, which is what I really want to talk about today with you, to other people, because most of us are job owners at best, or business operators. So
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've heard a thing or two about that.
Just a couple things, but you know what? That is the biggest truth that I think business owners come into with today's space, right? You know, like you, they've experienced this opportunity where they go, you know what? I could do this better, right? I could do this. I'm already kind of doing it. I really don't want to do it for somebody else and grow their business now. Why don't I just do it on my own? Mistake. Um, and then they go and they launch into the business and then they start owning a job with the worst boss and the worst employee. And in the first couple of years, they're working for close to minimum wage, you know, for the amount of hours, time, and investment they put into it with this gigantic headache that they never thought. And they wanted something better and easier. And so I'm glad to have you on today. Hopefully, give us some bright light ahead of us that would tell us that, you know, it is easier than you think.
I'm going to do my best. You be the judge, the audience be the judge. Please leave a comment down below and leave a rating too. I'm as a podcast host myself, Marcia is putting on a phenomenal show here. Go hop over to iTunes or wherever you are and give a 5-star rating. But yes, that is my intention to absolutely provide value and hopefully disrupt the way people think about growing a business, because what we've just found at What If is the traditional way of running any business, from the Fortune 100 who we've worked with down to solopreneurs. It's all broken. And there's a better, easier, and more fun way to do it in your business.
Love it, love it. All right, let's get into this. And thanks for the reminder of the review. So that was nice. All right, so let's get into this. When we talk about broken, where are we looking? Because you know there could be a dozen places that are broken in businesses right now. So where are you looking first?
So, shameless plug. I want to tell you where it started, but where I'm looking is we have a diagnostic tool that is absolutely free for anybody to use on our website. It's whatif.com. And what we've identified is that there's 10 fundamental disciplines to running any business. And normally when we think we have a problem, let's say we have a lead problem, that's the most common one people come to us with. They think, oh, I just need more leads to make more sales, to make more money, to have more profit, right? I'm sure you've followed that rabbit hole quite a few times as well. It's never there. And that's why it's the example I like to use is, if you go to a doctor, your general physician, and you say, you know, doc, my head hurts. I think you need to cut it off, and we need to go into surgery tomorrow. Like, no doctor in their right mind, especially a general physician, is not going to cut your head open or off on the spot. But that's what we do in our businesses. We say, lead problem, it's a lead thing. Go pay more money to Facebook ads or whatever it is. When the doctor sits down, asks you a few questions and really analyzes what's going on, and they say, have you drank any water today? And you're like, no, I actually haven't had water in 3 weeks. Oh, maybe that's where your headache is coming from. Like, that might be a place. Just let's try this first, and then we'll go to brain surgery. But you never just go right to that thing. And that's what we do in business as business owners. So we always start with that diagnostic. It asks the 50 questions that we need to know to absolutely pinpoint where the pain in your business is coming from, where those roadblocks are most often coming from. So that's the how. The what is a little bit different, and the when also. The when was the Industrial Revolution, believe it or not. So when you go back pre-Industrial Revolution, I know it sounds ridiculous, so
I mean,
bear
we're
with me
talking
here.
years back now, right?
Yes, many, many years ago, hundreds of years even.
Before the internet.
What is that? Before,
I
was
know,
there a
right?
time before, you said I'm young. Was there a time before the internet? Is that
There
real?
was. Oh my gosh, brick phones. Yes, all sorts of things.
I I was around a few years before the internet. We'll say that.
Okay.
But not too many. But no, so Industrial Revolution, before that, the way we did business was just really trade. I mean, yes, we had money, but it was, you did business with people you knew, you trusted. They were people from your village or your community, whatever that looked like. And if you needed help, if you were the baker of the village and you needed help, you would go hire your friend's son to help you with baking. You knew everybody involved with that process of producing what you sold. Then fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, that's when businesses started to scale. And it became impossible to know everybody who you were bringing into your organization. that's when we created things like departments and silos. And immediately when we did that, all hell broke loose, basically, because the person who started the business, there was absolutely no way for them to understand what was going on in the entire business structure because it wasn't built like that. It was built so that sales could compete with marketing, who could compete with HR for the same resources, not
Mm,
realizing that they're all on the same team and they all
mhm.
share the same resources. And we've proliferated that structure until today. And I know
Wow.
that because we've been inside the walls of over a dozen of the Fortune 100, and this very thing takes place. You have people and teams competing for the same resources that are to build, supposed to be to build the company, and they're actually tearing each other apart. And they're separating their divisions, their silos, their departments. You bring that structure of what we think business should look like down to small businesses, and it breaks further and faster than it does up there. And that's really, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that is how we got in the place that we are right now in business.
Okay. So the right hand not talking to the left hand, right? And nothing getting done in competition with inside to achieve their ultimate P&L that they're working on. And it's damaging the whole company. But what if your company is only, let's say 5 or 10 people, right? You've got one person doing each role. Are they still competing like that?
Absolutely. How many times have you heard business owners say that they need to work more on the business and less in the business? That's a common phrase, right? Yeah, there you go. I know
Yes.
you've heard that one. Or I've heard also people say they're putting on their CEO hat today and their CFO hat tomorrow and their CMO hat next week. And that's the language that you hear to say, like, no, do we have heads of marketing and chiefs of staff and stuff like this when we have 5 employees? No, but in our heads, we're still bouncing back and forth from disciplines or from departments, and you're still separating out the way you think about your business. They're not putting it together as one cohesive unit.
That's crazy because what did we just talk about before we hit record? That I was running and doing these things and I had my marketing hat on, and I know that somebody else in my business was suffering because I was playing marketer trying to build reels instead of, looking at the whole holistic piece of a company in one.
I just called you
Crazy.
out by accident. I
Yes,
didn't. We're
you
gonna fix
did.
it. I promise. By the time we're done with this episode, we're gonna have it fixed. But
Good.
yeah, it's not, you're not alone. I've done it too. We all do it. But that's the mindset that really gets us in that place.
So how do we get by that? I mean, okay, we were trained by business owners before us, our parents, or by college, God forbid, right? And we were told exactly what to do. And you've got to have all these departments, and we have all these, we're multitaskers in our head, right? How do we get out around that?
Yeah, that's another one. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but I will say this. So when we work with our clients, the first thing we do, they're like, all right, let's grow our business. Yeah, let's go. I'm like, nope, show
We
me your
need more
calendar.
people. We
Yeah.
need more money.
I don't care what you think you need. First and foremost, show me your calendar. I have to see what you are doing and what you think you're doing because I'm pretty positive I could save you 10 to 20% of your time in like 5 minutes if we just
Oh my
restructured
gosh.
your day. And it's just
Oh
for,
my
you said
gosh.
it was from multitasking, just because it takes, I've seen studies that say it takes about 23 minutes to actually catch up to an activity after you start doing it. So when you're air quotes multitasking, if you're answering an email and then you're filling out a spreadsheet, you're not doing any of them optimally and you're just continually slowing yourself down throughout the day. And we
Oh my goodness. Called
multiply
me
that
out
across
again.
days and weeks. Yep. I'm calling myself. I used to be the worst at that because I was like, oh yeah, multitask, like that's easy. No, don't do
No,
that.
but then we look at our role, right? Okay, so say we're a solopreneur, right? And we've got 8 different hats we've got to wear every day from accounting to marketing to client fulfillment, right? How do we manage all that?
Why are they different hats?
I'm not, yes, yes, and yes. So I don't know the answer for that because client fulfillment is a task, maybe not a hat, but yes, don't know
No,
how to
it's
answer
totally
that.
fine. And that's why I asked the question because that is the most common pushback we get is I have to do all of these things. I don't know how to get them done. I'm a solopreneur. I have a small team. I've heard it from people who have 50 plus employees. I have to get so much done. I'm managing in so many different directions. And I say, why does it have to be different? Why does it have to be separated? Why are we not thinking about our business as a pipeline, if you will, as one cohesive unit that from start to finish, everything touches, everything supports itself, and you're never doing wasted tasks or wasted activities. Yes, there are support tasks like when you're saying you have to put on your finance hat. Yeah, I mean, you have to make sure your books reconcile at the end of the day, at the end of the month, but you could be building things in. So that kind of happens itself 80 to 90% along the way. And that's how
Mm,
we want to build your whole business structure. So what we really do at What If is we do say that we're fractional COOs, which we do. We do fractional COO work, but we actually go a step back because we realize that a company that needs a fractional anything at that scale is really between 5 and 20 million,
yes.
maybe a little bit sooner, and you can obviously scale past that. But that's the range where you're really aggressively pursuing fractional help.
Yes.
When we get into those companies, they are a disaster every single time. There's not one instance I can remember where it's been like, oh, this is fantastic. You really don't need us. And the
Right.
first 3 to 6 months of that engagement is always spent cleaning up the mess and putting
Mm,
a business structure in place. So we said, all right, we got to back this up. So what we started to focus on was getting people before the chaos, if you will.
mm,
Once you see success in business and you are scaling, you're growing, you're gonna hit a roadblock around 7 figures. We've coined it the 7 figure sticking point.
mm,
And every single time, what I have found is that to grow a business to 6 figures is a miracle. Kudos to you. From 6 to 7 is a lot easier because you're going to start having help. You're going to start putting systems in place. Beyond 7 is impossible if you don't do the one crucial step of intentional business model design. And
mm.
what I mean
Love
by
that.
that is just mapping out what do you want your business to be from start to finish? How do you want customers to interact with you across that chain? How do you fulfill on that product from start to finish and all of your different product lines, revenue streams, whatever that is, without the intentional design behind what your business looks like, you
Mm.
cannot scale further than the low 7 figures, we'll say.
I love that because I'm a planner at heart. I need to see how things are all put together. And for me, that's been a big pushback I get from my clients is, oh, let's just solve the problem, right? And that design of what they're doing makes everything run better because how can you get your and I'll use the department again. How can you get your accounting department to work with the marketing department to work with the sales department if you don't have a clear line that draws all the way through them? And how can, you have to, as the leader, teach them what you want them to do. And if you don't have a plan, then you're just kind of pulling it out of your back pocket every once in a while and going, hey, let's try this.
As most do. Yeah, most people that's their entire business career is what's next? What's on the schedule today? What are we doing right now? What's the fire that's burning right now? And
Yes,
it's just this constant never-ending state of disarray. As a matter of fact, one of the disciplines in our harmonious business architecture, harmonious is an acronym for the
I
10.
love it.
The S is serenity. And most business owners do not, I mean, you can just feel what serenity would be. Most people don't have that in their
Of
business
course.
because it's fire to problem to somebody just quit,
Yep.
and we
And
need to
then chasing
hire.
customers.
Yep, all the time.
That's been a common theme. It's like putting out fires and chasing customers is always the modus operandus for companies. And I think you're on point that that's 7 figures. It gets significantly worse.
Oh yeah, yeah, because that's where the old phrase, what got you here won't get you there. What I'm not saying by that is throw out everything that got you here.
Correct.
That is not good advice, and I would never give you that advice. But what I do mean by that is business owners think it's a math equation of, okay, to get to 7 figures, I worked, let's just say 50 hours a week and be wink, wink, I'm generous there because I know you're probably more than that. We worked 50 hours a week. Okay, if I want to get to 2 million or 5 million, I just need to continue to dial up my time and I'll get
Mm,
more. It's the law of
More.
diminishing returns, though. As you work more,
One
as you
more
become
call.
more involved with your company as the owner, you actually get more and more in the way of that company's growth. And you'll see that your profits, I'm sure you could speak to this from a very specific point of view, but your profits will actually decrease dramatically the more you work. And it's a
Yes.
dangerous place to be.
Isn't that crazy though? But like you said, the today's business owner, I mean, they just don't, they can't see that. Even though you and I can explain it in 5 ways, different ways each time in different colors, they're still not seeing it. Their idea is if I just make one more phone call, if I just had one more client, if I just did this, and it was the answer is always more. But as we introduced you, it's working smarter, not harder on the tactics. And when you start to build and scale that company, you're bringing in people to take stuff off your plate, not to add stuff to your plate, right? So you
Mhm.
can focus on the things that are most important that only you can do. So I love this idea of really just dialing it in a way that says, this is a whole company. Let's work on it as a whole. Now I'm leading it, but I'm not doing everything. I'm not swinging the hammer every day. I've got people to swing it for me. One holds the nail, the other one holds the wood, and then the third person hits the hammer, right?
That sounds like an OSHA violation waiting to happen.
In theory.
But yes, and I also want to defend the people if I've made anybody upset or if I've triggered anybody by this. You you said, why don't we realize this? Well, we haven't been taught. And that's
Mm,
I did go to college for business management, business operations. Never once was this discussed, and it never will be discussed. That's my personal belief because that system is designed to make you a really good employee, which we won't go down that rabbit hole, but that's just my beliefs on school. So that is the equation. If you work more, if you work harder, you get a bigger paycheck, you get a bigger bonus. And that's the mindset. Even coming from, if you come from the corporate world, that is reinforced. Everywhere you look, that mentality is reinforced. And then you go become an entrepreneur and you're like, okay, well, I get it. I got the equation. More is more. And this is what we're talking about. As soon as you get to it, that tipping point, that 7-figure sticking point, more is way less and more
mm,
is potentially out of business very quickly.
mm. Well said. All right. So now that we recognize less is more,
Charmin. Yep.
yeah, less is more. Um, where can we go to make that better? Is it finding better people? You mentioned it's finding better organization, right? And mapping out the plan that connects everybody together. Where do we start to look first? Because we're leaking, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
what
It
what
sounds like
hole do we plug first?
maybe we should see a doctor if we're leaking. I don't.
No, I thought you were going to take our head off if I go to the
Oh,
doctor.
that's right. We're going right to brain surgery. Okay. So we're no longer leaking. We've cut our heads off. So oversimplified business is really two things. It is systems and people.
Mm,
And the way that those two things talk to each other is going to determine how successful your organization is.
mm,
So in order to start this process of really, we need to look past that and look internally at you at the leader first and foremost. You need to be so far out of the way of your company that if you were gone for 3 months, nothing would happen except the company would continue to grow. And I say that to people and they get really scared. Actually, I'll give you what I normally ask people is how long could you step away from your company with no contact before you started to see a dip in revenue and profit? And the and is the most important, revenue and profit. And people get really scared because I start with 3 minutes. It's like, haha, funny. And then I say 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks. And now like hives have broken out. At the time I'm at 3 weeks, it's like, no,
exactly.
no, please. I need my cell phone. I need my email. And then I go 3 months, 3 years, and so on. And until you're at the 3 week point is really the tipping point of being a business owner. And I say that because most people are on a 2 week pay cycle, and everything else you're going to experience is going to be within 1 month.
Mm,
So at 3 weeks, if your company doesn't see a dip in revenue and profit, you're in a pretty good position. So we have
absolutely.
to say, okay, what are those things? This is to answer your question then. What are the things that I am doing that would directly impact that number going from 3 weeks to anything less? And
Mm,
start to just take stock of what you're doing. The easiest way to do this, and I mentioned this before when we work with our clients, is do a time study. as dumb and as rudimentary as that sounds, like you have to be able to see visually what is going on in your company. And the way that I do time studies, I don't need you to print out a piece of paper and log things every 5 seconds. I literally use my Google Calendar. After I do something, I create an event, air quotes
Oh,
around that, and I just log what it was. If it was check emails for 30 minutes, if it was client phone call for an hour, whatever. So I have my stuff, you know, pre-events scheduled for the week. And then anything I do in that white space, I just log it. And now we can start to say, okay, out of this visual picture of where my time went, these 40 hours over the past week, which one of
right.
those things, if I stopped doing them, would would have a detrimental impact on this company? And that's
Mhm.
exactly where we need to start.
I love it. I love it because we do. We waste so much time doing things that we really shouldn't be doing, and yeah, what a great way. And I didn't think about, because asking anybody to sit down and let's look at your numbers, right? Let's run a budget, and they start squirming on me, and I'm like, well, how are we going to know where we were or where we're going if we don't know where we were and what we're doing currently, right? There's three times of sort that we have to look at. But I think that's what people don't realize. What's that saying that um, you could accomplish it's something about a year. You make goals and you set goals for a year, but then they're wrong for if you're setting goals for a week, right? Or something like that. I know
Mm.
it's terrible,
I think it's if
terrible
you're if
analogy, but
you
yeah,
could accomplish more in a decade than you think you can, and but most people only set goals for a year, something like that. Is that the one you're
something
you're
like
talking
that.
about?
Yeah. It's just it's terrible that we don't realize how much we can actually do when we put our mind to it and focus on the task at hand and get that done. And when we look back at that calendar that we've added all those random events that weren't on our calendar, but there were tasks we did, right? And we put them on the calendar and filled in and went, wow, I really, wasted a lot of time here. And I think as the company gets bigger though, right? And you have more employees, you're going to waste, I use that term loosely, waste a lot of time with employees coming in and asking for help and direction and guidance and those kind of things. But I think that we can plan for that. We can we can improve that over time. But I think the only thing that we really can control now is ourselves and our own activities.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of that sticking point comes from, because if your employees are asking you questions, it means you haven't adequately set up your business systems and processes, and you haven't trained them well enough to be able to operate without you. So everything I'm saying about getting stuck at this phase, really at any phase, but particularly this first one, is when you set up the business to rely on you as a sole decision maker, this is where all of this stems from. If everything, like, map your processes, if every single process has to touch you as the owner at some point, that's a disaster waiting to happen. What if you even get sick for 3 days? Like, we just went through COVID. People were in hospitals for weeks. Like, this is real. It could happen at any time, and your business is so susceptible to something just going wrong because people don't have the tools and resources to be able to solve those problems without you.
Exactly. Exactly. What a great conversation and eye-opening view on the way we're looking at our business from the owner's point of view, right? The founder, the what do they call it? The owner operator,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Because that's different being an owner operator than a business owner where you're stepped aside and you've got people doing and processes and everything else. And I think that's a big reality check. If you are the owner operator, then you have a paid job.
Yep. Yep. As bad as that sounds. Yep.
Maybe paid job.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, we should put that in there.
Hopefully it's a
Hopefully
paid
you get
job,
paid
right?
more than minimum wage. But yeah, if you divide
Yeah.
the hours by your salary, in most cases, it's like $4 an hour.
Oh, isn't it crazy? It can be. It can be, right? In the beginning. But
Yeah.
I think that's the big aha here is that how do you cannot nobody created a business with one person And that one person being the linchpin that says that I'm involved in every aspect of it, that's the startup phase.
Yes,
That's the owner operator phase. But as soon as you hit a certain amount of revenue, you've got to bring people on and processes on so that you can continue to serve your community, your family, your employees and everything you've got going, because as a business owner, there's a lot of responsibility there too, to keep going.
absolutely.
People are depending on you, your customers, your team members, your landlord in your building, right? Everybody's depending on you to succeed. And the only way you can succeed, if I have your ideas and concepts down, is to really put those systems in place, starting with a plan.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that you have to just take a hard look at we take for granted the responsibility we have as entrepreneurs. The minute you decide to go into business for yourself, even if let's boil this down to the ultimate base level, like you have a desk set up in your garage. You don't have a landlord, you don't have any other expenses really. It's whatever your expenses are. You have yourself, if you have a family, you have a family to be responsible of. But once you do start to grow, you have an employee, you hire an accountant, a bookkeeper, you hire a VA, you have rent, like you now have other people relying on you for some source of some percentage of their income. However big or small that is, doesn't matter. Like you have this responsibility on your back. And I believe it's your responsibility if you're going to go into business to educate yourself on how to do business appropriately and sustainably so that you're not caught up in the hustle culture and you're always burning yourself out. Like, let's build a business that you can actually be proud of, but then also walk away from, whether that's a sale or just go on vacation. Neither of those things can happen if you are involved in the day-to-day operation of the business. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was actually at a conference last week, sort of like a mastermind. There was, we'll say 50 to 60 people in the room representing maybe 30 to 40 different businesses. There was one person, one, who did not constantly check his phone and was being on or was on phone calls with employees, with customers, and it blew my mind. And it
Wow.
was interesting too when I got to learn a little bit more about this individual. He had a $10+ million company. He's on the path to have a quarter billion dollar, excuse me, exit in the next 3 years. And I
Woohoo.
said, yes, you are. That makes complete sense. But everybody else in the room who's constantly on their phone, there's a long path in front of you. Actually, it doesn't have to be a long path, but there is a path in front of you that you have to go down if you ever want to take a vacation or sell your business.
Right on. That is the exact point that nobody's going to want to buy your headache, right? And how is it that you have invested your time and money to go to this conference, right? And learn and be in that conference and be active, right? If you're checking your phones and putting out fires and, oh, this client, no, this thing happened and Susie didn't show up and John is having a problem with this thing broke. And, I mean, that's terrible. And that's what all the conversations were. But they invested this time and money to go and be more, learn, educate themselves. And they didn't experience it.
Yeah, I'll
Sad.
tell you what, I've had those conversations. That was me 4 years ago, growing my first company when I made the decision to say there's a better way. Like there has to be a better way. I see the people there. I see the one guy in the room. He's doing something right. So let me figure out what this is. And I thank God every day I met my business partner now, Sean, who you mentioned in my bio. And this is our mission is we've cracked that code for the Fortune 100 all the way down to solopreneurs. And I just want to see more people who are entrepreneurs not have that gorilla on their back, like it's all going to come crashing down at any minute. And it's possible, and it's way more fun when you do
Mm.
solve that puzzle.
Right. Isn't that why we got in business for, is the freedom and the lifestyle and the financial gains that we could have by having a business? Where most of us aren't even anywhere close to that because we're grinding through business.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's what we're here to fix. Me and you both,
Love it.
right?
Right? Okay. So, Brandon, you've given us some really good ideas and thought processes on there are better ways of doing it. Where can listeners find out more about you and What If?
Well, we joked before we started recording, not on social media, because that is not my thing. That's where Marcia can be found, not me. But no, so what we have for you is we put together this, it's actually a three-part audio series. It's absolutely free. So if you go to whatif.com/clarity, and that's what if with a D, I'm sure it's in the show notes
Yes.
down below. Whatif.com/clarity. It's a three-part audio series. We're going to walk you through. It's our process we take our clients through 90 days to get your business set up to be scalable and reclaim 50% of your time. I know it's possible. We've done it dozens of times. If you follow this process, we'll walk you right through it. And I know I mentioned that assessment before earlier in the show. That's actually part of one of the modules. So no need to do anything extra. Just go whatif.com/clarity and let's get you on the path to scale and exit in whatever fashion you want, but under your terms and making the money you want. That's my goal.
Wow. Love it. And just imagine, what could you do with 50% more time? Most of us business owners would say, oh, I'll take on another project, right? But what if, becomes your choice? But what if you had that time to breathe and enjoy your company? Take that vacation, go play golf on a Friday afternoon, or go add that next lever into your company to be able to do more with it. I love the idea, and I think I'll be seeing you in that course. So it's always as a way to improve myself for sure. So, wow, love that. And it's at whatif.com, and then it's /clarity, correct?
Clarity. Yep. WHADIF.com/clarity.
Love it. All right, listeners, I hope you found a couple of ideas today to put into your business that will help you be more profitable. Since time is money, managing your time in a way you can end up making more money and have the freedom and lifestyle that you so desired when you started this company if you follow Brandon's methodology. So while you're at it, go do it. Okay, how would you like to supercharge your business? Don't forget to go download my new Profit Booster Playbook packed with 3 profit strategies and the actionable steps that you can use to make this your most profitable year ever. Go grab it for free at boostingprofit.com. And if you remember, Brandon said we want to hear your feedback, right? We want comment in the comments in the show notes. Tell us where you think your biggest roadblock is. So tell us where you think your biggest roadblock is, and chances are you might be right and you might not be right. And maybe Brandon and I will comment on it and help get you in that right direction and probably push you back to Brandon's great program that he's offering.
Don't go
While you're
right to
at it,
brain surgery, remember.
exactly, no head cutting off. That was a great story. So while you're at it, please subscribe. You don't want to miss next week's show, and you can always catch Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast players. We're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's shows. So until then, make your plans and profit. Thank you so much, Brandon.